So we will reconvene from closed session. And I will start with roll call. Director Drake?
Liz Drake, Director, District 3.
Hiroshi Eto, Director, District 5.
Claire Wilson, Director, District 2.
Jeffrey McAnalloy, Director, District 1.
Carol Gregory, Director, District 4.
Tammy Campbell, Superintendent.
And now if you all please rise for the presentation of the colors by Federal Way High School, JROTC.
Gary. Colors. Forward. March. Hold guard. Pull. Left. Face. Raise and colors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Gary. Colors. Right. Face. Forward. March. Color. Hold. Order. Colors. Follow.
Please be seated. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the meeting agenda of October 25, 2016 as submitted.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. This time I'd entertain a motion for the approval of the requested approvals agenda.
I move that the Board of Education approve the required approvals agenda of October the 25th, 2016, as submitted.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And now we will do good news announcements.
As a board member, this is always one of my favorite moments to share the good news that's going on in our district. And to start, I would like to announce the students, scholars, and staff at Lake Grove Elementary School recently celebrated an exciting achievement. For the first month of school, 148 Lake Grove Leopards had perfect attendance. In celebration of this feat, each scholar was awarded a T-shirt to commemorate the occasion. We would like to recognize the following individuals for your efforts to increase attendance. And if you haven't already come up, please do come up. I'd like to recognize Principal Doug Rutherford for the great job he's doing, Heather Washington, Patty Samora, Monet Haley, Brandon Gladstone, Alexander Gladstone, Sophia Tolbear, Isabel Tolbear, Isaiah Pokibay, Dylan Lang, Andrew Lang. The district's focus on attendance is directly tied to the strategic plan and more specifically, the district-wide emphasis on Goal 2, whole child, thriving, confident, responsible individuals. One measure of success for this goal is student scholars participating in at least 95% of instructional time. Thank you to Lake Grove for making attendance and student success a priority. Keep up the great work.
Today, we would like to acknowledge two students who have been named as semifinalists in the 2017 National Merit Scholarship Program. When I call your name, please come forward. Cindy Ime and Justin Kwan. For those of you that may not be familiar with this scholarship, this is an extremely prestigious national scholarship that takes a lot of work for a student to be qualified for. And that's my phone, ignore it, please. To be considered a semifinalist, the student must have one of the highest PSAT scores in his or her respective state. In addition, the student must submit an application detailing why he or she should be chosen and identify leadership, employment, honors, and awards. Cindy met and surpassed these requirements with very high PSAT scores, taking the maximum amount of AP courses, 7 AP classes out of an 8-day period. Volunteering and being president of the Todd Beamer High School National Honor Society. Justin also received very high PSAT scores. Justin is involved in clubs such as Robotics Club, Speech, and Debate, as well as Washington Aerospace Scholars. Additionally, he has won several awards in speech and debate. Out of the 1.6 million juniors that apply, 16,000 are chosen as semifinalists. About 90% of the semifinalists are expected to attain finalist standing, and about half of those finalists will win National Merit Scholarships, earn the National Merit Scholar title, and share in the $33 million worth of scholarships. National Merit Scholars will be announced April through July. This effort is in direct support of two goals of our strategic plan. Goal 4, content area competence, and Goal 5, persistence to graduation. Cindy and Justin, we are so proud of you and wish you the best of luck in this endeavor. Congratulations.
On October 6th, Federal Way Public Schools students, scholars, families, and community attended a student-led educational forum with local political candidates at Todd Beamer High School. This year is an important year with the presidential election and the upcoming state legislation, with McCleary being an important focus of adequately funding basic education in Washington State. We are so proud of our scholars for being engaged in the process. One of the goals within our new strategic plan is Goal 3, which speaks to each of our scholars being active learners, engaged, empowered, critical thinkers. Student voice and leadership at events like this forum are examples of how we ensure our scholars are engaged in the democratic process and are informed about and participating in the political arena that will shape their futures. We'd like to acknowledge the students who helped lead this event. Please come up when I call your name. Dorian Donahue, Austin Stafford, Benjamin Park, Jacob Rivera, Carolyn Isaac, Megan Zensultan, Ivan Vasquez, and Mario Mason. These students fulfilled a number of roles, including helping organize the event, asking candidates questions, giving introduction and closing speeches, and keeping time. Congratulations to all of you.
Good evening. This never gets old. Tonight, I'd like to recognize a graduate from Federal Way Open Doors, previously Federal Way Acceleration Academy. Persistence to graduation is goal 5 of our strategic plan. And this graduate that you're about to meet demonstrated this perfectly. Aaron Valentine was one of our first students. In fact, he was at Federal Way Open Doors before I arrived. He needed 8 credits, that's 16 classes, and accomplished this in a year and a half. Mostly he was off-site. His responsibilities included being the main caregiver for his grandmother and necessitated that he have the flexibility of our school at Open Doors. Because of that, he's been able to obtain his high school diploma tonight. Also, because of his close connection with our case manager, Maureen Decker, who's here tonight, and her attention to Aaron's story and his individualized needs, he was able to achieve his goals. Despite several stops and starts in our program, he persevered. That also includes Algebra 2 and his math teachers here tonight. Congratulations, Aaron. You have truly earned this accomplishment. We are so excited to hear about next steps towards your bright future, specifically you going to become a nurse and attending Olympic College. When I asked your mom what she wanted me to share, she wanted you to know that not only we're proud, but your family is so proud of you. Congratulations.
So our next item on the agenda is talking about our legislative update. And I'm actually going to lead tonight, and then I will pass it over to my cohort. We met as a legislative committee this last weekend as Washington School Directors Association. There's 24 of us from across the state. And we had our Ledge Assembly last month, and there were 160 individuals from 95 school districts that came together to talk about what the platform should look and what we should take to the legislative. And so the big things is really talking about what ended up in our, there's a lot of paperwork, so bear with me just a second. The number one issue that arose was actually changing the school bond approval ratings. Currently, it takes 60% or a supermajority with a supermajority voting from the previous election to pass a school bond. And as you know, in Federal Way, this is actually one of our top 10 because it is definitely very important. And we actually have established a facilities committee to start discussing this as a district. So it's good to see that it's up there. Fully funding of basic education, as we talk about McCleary and the requirements of McCleary and the paramount duty of the legislature, their deadline is this year. They have no longer to go. They can't kick the can down the road any further. They need to make some decisions on how they're going to do it. Unfortunately, our legislators for our local 30th district believes that a levy swap works And that really is just swapping money. It's moving money around. It's no new additional revenue. And that does not benefit in the long term taking care of our students. So it's nice to see that that's up there. Levy equalization, or the levy lid. So as you know, this is something that the legislature was supposed to take care of last year as well. They've committed that by April 1st, they will make a commitment to make a decision by April 30th. If they do not make that decision by April 30th, which we have been told several times in different meetings that this is going to be a partisan issue, that we will actually, in late May, have to give pink slips to enough teachers that would take care of 18 elementary schools. And then we will have to lay them off and let them go if funding's not in place to do that. So this is something that is of highest interest to us, because the last thing we want to do based on having a teacher shortage is to let go of any of our teachers, right? And so these are things that as we're actually starting to work on some things to try to look at giving you basic information so you understand what needs to be shared with the legislators. What? 8 what? Oh, it's 8. I thought it was 18. Okay, it's 8 schools. But still, I mean, if we lay off even if we lay off 8 schools, right? If we lay off, and so I got that number wrong. There's been a lot of numbers. But even the staff to support 8 schools, that's a huge number of teachers, right? And support that we'd have to let go of. And that's the last thing we want to do. And then the next thing is fully funding facilities for mandated class size reductions. We are brimming currently, right? We don't have enough space to take care of what's done. It's been passed through a voter-approved piece that says we need to make sure that class sizes are reduced. The K-3 funding class sizes that they do, if we don't get to those class sizes, they don't give us the revenue. So it's a catch-22 situation. If we don't have space to put them in and enough teachers to do that, we don't get the funding from the state. And so there's lots of components and pieces that go with that. I don't want to go through the whole list, but I just kind of wanted to kind of share what we talked about. It now goes from the Ledge Committee to the board of WASDA to approve it. And by the middle of November, we'll have our statement that we will move forward with. But I'll turn it over to Director Drake to kind of share what Federal Way looks like based on against the state.
So it was great hearing from Director McAnally that the Legislative Assembly identified their priorities. Back on September the 24th as a team, 3 of us, Director Wilson, Director McAnally, and myself, we attended the Legislative Assembly, at which time we as a team were able to identify for Federal Way School District what we considered to be the top priorities as we move forward in the 2017 legislative year. And as Director McAnally said, really fully funding education is critical for our scholars here in Federal Way. And what I found very exciting as I looked through what it was that was decided by WASDA at the meeting this last weekend is that out of the 10 top priorities that we as a school district identified as priorities, 9 of those are the same as the priorities identified by WASDA. And our top 3 priorities are 2, 3, and 4 in the statewide legislative priorities. Our top 3, levy equalization, levy lid, so that exactly what Director McAnally is saying, that we cannot be in a position come the spring of next year to have to lay off 8 schools worth of teachers because we haven't got the funding. Fully funding basic education is our number 2, and it is the state's number 2. And our 3rd is school compensation, and it is the state's number 4. So we're in alignment, and as Director McAnally said, we're working on a statement, an open letter to provide information that will assist our community, our parents and our community, to be in touch with our legislators to make your voices as well as our voices heard as we move forward, because you are very powerful. Your voice is very powerful in helping our school district do the very best it can for our scholars. So, good news.
Thank you. And one last comment is that I've been served on this Ledge Committee for 2 years, and this last weekend I was voted in to chair this committee for 2017 years. So I'm very excited and honored to be able to do that. So, thank you. Thanks. All right, next is public comments. So there are blue sheets on the back table to fill out. We have several comments tonight, and I want to make sure that I preempt this, that we do not ever speak about an individual or an employee directly. If you do, I will gavel you and stop you in your process. So make sure that you remember that. We don't call out any employees, school or otherwise, because I will gavel you. It's not a place to do from public comment. So the first comment this evening comes from Max Hayes and Julie Hang on We Scare Hunger.
Hello, my name is July Hang, and I'm one of this year's co-chair for We Scare Hunger.
And my name is Max Hayes. I'm also co-chair this year for We Scare Hunger. So coming up on October 31st, which is this upcoming Monday, we will be hosting, I believe our 5th annual We Scare Hunger event. And this year it'll be held at Town Square Park, so we can take advantage of the beautiful park that Federal Way has provided us with. And starting at 4:30, we're actually implementing something new this year. We're going to begin with a carnival, which we have invited all the high schools to participate in. There's going to be different clubs there selling and also selling food, and also having some games and carnival type games that all students and families are available to play in. And then we also have some live speakers beginning at 6 o'clock, and also some competitions. And so we look forward to seeing you all there. And we would like to extend an invitation to not only the school board, but also all the parents in the all the parents in the building as well. And we've been working hard for this year's We Scare Hunger, and we hope to see you all there. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Next is Christy Erickson on use of ASB funds in school activities.
I was informed from a parent meeting that ASB funds were used to sponsor or pay for stickers for what I consider a political agenda, or something that would be a club activity after school. I thought ASB funds were for the athletics and school authorized activities, like something like the school teams, the school choir, the school things that they do during school. I did not think the ASB funds were for that. Also, they had an event at Todd Beamer that parents were not informed of. Black Lives Matter, and I believe Black lives do matter. But I also believe that all lives. You look at the students we have, there are Asians, there's Hispanic, you have gay students, you have white students, all lives matter. And to single out just one during the school day. Now, after school, yes, have your clubs, have your the rally or whatever. But I think that it is inappropriate during school. And also on that same day, because fights broke out, this really upset me. All the students were ordered to leave school property before school was supposed to be out. Were they supposed to go out in the street? Where were these students supposed to go? The buses were not there. I asked my daughter, I said, what? She goes, they told us we had to leave, Mom. And I just find that unacceptable. If there was something going on that student safety was in question, they should have had somewhere on campus and tell all the students to go to that facility. And like I said, after school, there's all kinds of clubs and things. But you can't support one. If they're going to support that one, great. Then you're going to have to use ASB funds to support some of the other clubs, the gay club, the Latino club. But if you're not, then that's unequal, inequality. And I just don't think that's right.
Thank you. Next is Kiara Fulton on BSU Todd Beamer High School.
Hello. My name is Kiara Fulton, and I'm an African American student from Todd Beamer High School. I came across during this week that we, the BSU at Todd Beamer, made students and parents feel uncomfortable by wearing black for all Black Lives Matter and handing out Black Lives Matter stickers. Please help me understand why something that students are very passionate about could offend people. Would it have offended you if the stickers would have said All Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter too? It only offends you because the statement only supported Black lives. Yes, we understand all lives matter, but now look at the group that's being put down without any chance to explain themselves. It's crazy how people say they feel offended by what we did, but as an African American student, I feel offended every day going to a predominantly white school district that's staffed with people who don't understand everything that I go through. I understand that you're trying to protect your child, but who is there to protect us when we feel uncomfortable? Why we learn about things that make us feel uncomfortable in our day-to-day lives. Our plan was never to offend anyone, but to inform others that Black Lives Matter is a big part of Beamer and will remain that way. And that I'm very sorry that I may have offended some of you. But please take a walk in my shoes and understand that we go through it every day as African American students. Our struggles every day varies, but we have to hide our emotions and feelings because it may offend someone.
Ellie Mae Haney concerning Todd Beamer.
Hi, I am Ellie Mae Haney. I go to Todd Beamer High School, and as many of you know, this past week there has been quite a bit of police activity going on, but one in particular that has created a huge disruption was when a girl was in the hallways screaming profanities, which was at the principal and the vice principal. She apparently had then gotten in a fight and then the officer on duty took control of the situation and handcuffed her. There was a lot of resistance and physical activity while the officer was trying to handcuff her. I have been told by many people who saw this happen that she, possibly not on purpose, hit his face trying to make it difficult for him to arrest her. The police officer was not at school the next day. He was fired. He lost his job from simply doing his job. Are you going to take a fireman's job from putting a fire out? Are you going to fire a surgeon for performing surgery? No. I cannot wrap my head around that one. He was protecting thousands of students by stopping one student from possibly physically assaulting many more. And she, the one who assaulted the police officer, came back to the school 2 days later. I was forced to sit through 4 hours of my teacher that I have for 2 periods in a row that I truly do enjoy listening to her in things that aren't political. She told us why Black Lives Matter and how she was so devastated that this had happened to this young, pure girl. The next day, we were strongly recommended to wear black and supported this girl. Well, I wore white to show that I don't support that Black Lives Matter. I support that all lives matter. I was ridiculed for many people who I'm assuming really didn't know what they were talking about because it was quite clear they didn't know what they were supporting. I have always thought that teachers were not supposed to share their political beliefs, but I guess not. Though I know they are not allowed to share their religious beliefs. Honestly, telling us to wear black to support something that not everyone agrees with is like a Christian teacher telling us that they strongly recommend everyone to bring a Bible to school the next day, then getting upset with them if they didn't, even if they don't believe that the Bible is true. There is no difference between the two other than the fact that one is political and one is religious, which are the two most arguable topics in this day and age. Therefore, I believe teachers should not try to persuade students one way or another. As of right now, young adults and actual adults are thinking that the authority has no authority over them. And if this continues, police officers' authority will end up becoming less and less until it is no more. I still don't understand why we were told to wear black to show support for this girl who has assaulted police officers more than just last week. Yet she is still talked about as some sort of hero. In case you were wondering, the girl was black and the policeman was white. Ideally, it should not matter what your skin color is. It should not matter what you look like. It should only matter what you have done and under what circumstances. But sadly, that is not the world we live in. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day my children will live in a world where you are judged not by the color of your skin, but by the content of your character. Martin Luther King. But sadly, that is not the world we are living in.
Thank you. Elena Lewis.
Good evening, Board President McEnoy, members of the board, and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. I would like to outline a few of the reasons I provided space for my students to talk about the events that occurred last Tuesday at Todd Beamer. Students came to my classroom with varying levels of information. Some had been involved, some witnessed to the events, others had no knowledge of what had taken place. Many of my students had visibly shut down. I saw heads on desks. I saw difficulty staying in class or even traveling in the hallways. I saw students that were crying and students visibly restraining frustration and hurt. To not address the events when so many of my students were affected would have been both irresponsible as an educator and impossible as far as accomplishing any new content. I did not wish to make any assumption about what my students needed. I offered opportunities for students to democratically decide how to proceed with the class period. They could continue with content, continuing to discuss indirect characterization in a short story we've been analyzing. They could talk it out with me as a class. We could watch an excerpt from a documentary shot by Swedish filmmakers called Black Power Mixtape. Or they could choose to read independently or work silently. By a majority, between 65 and 85% over my 5 classes, decided to talk it out. I acknowledge to my students that each of us has our own truth. Even if they may have seen a video of the events, the video was only one of many truths. It showed one angle, one perspective, nothing more. I shared my experience and related that theirs was just as important. I heard a wide variety of opinions, inclusive of religious beliefs and convictions of the importance of social justice activism. I heard students grappling with distinguishing equity from equality. I heard conversations that illustrated the utmost compassion and love for fellow Titans. Conversations like the ones we had are valuable community builders, and they're not easy. Closure is completely unattainable. In my classroom, students brought a gravity, maturity, and respectfulness that astonished and delighted. I'd like to leave you tonight with a quote that has been my mantra in the last week. As social activist and co-founder of the Black Panther Party, Bobby Seale said, "You don't fight racism with racism. The best way to fight racism is with solidarity." Thank you.
Thank you. Vendrado Duncan. Vendrado Duncan? Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, I thought it was the other.
Good evening. My name is Vandrady Duncan, and I'm a 9th grader at Todd Beamer. And I think it's important to talk about the Black Lives Matter thing at school because I feel like a lot of people have a misunderstanding of it. To me, I feel like it's to bring more equality and less racism and prejudice. And I know it also conflicts with All Lives Matters, but in my personal opinion, I think like all lives matter because they do. Like a life is a life, but it won't be a thing until Black Lives Matter too.
Philip Philbrick.
Hello, and thank you for letting me speak tonight. So I have a slightly skewed perspective on what happened to Todd Beamer. My son is part African American and part white. And when he comes home to me and says, "Dad, are you bad?" That should never be a conversation I should have to have with my son. Never. It should never be an issue of whether he is white or black. He should never, never have to come to me and say, which is more important? My son should never have to come to a school and say, I have to dress as black, and then I'm told that I'm not black. It should never happen. I'm frustrated because I listen to these comments about how one versus another is equally as important, and we're all special, and we're all going to get along, and it's all important. But what happened wasn't. What happened didn't follow the routine. It didn't come out and say, hey, you're all important, you're all special. We need to talk about this and deal with it in a civilized manner. That's not what happened. I shouldn't have to have a conversation with my son about that. I shouldn't have to find out it after the fact. It shouldn't happen that way.
Let's please not make comments while there's comment, okay? Excuse me.
It's unacceptable. I absolutely agree. There should be conversations had. I absolutely agree that it is something that's important, but it shouldn't be made a matter. It should be made a feeling. It should be made something that you live by. Not some committee, not some movement. It should be who you are inside. I teach my son to be respectful for everyone, that every one of us is important. And we should never be treated as you're black, you're white, you're African American, you're Asian. Last time I checked, I'm an American. Simple as that. My son is an American and should be treated as that. Being born and raised in Rainier Valley, being one of only 2 white kids in a school that is predominantly African American, I also have that perspective as well. And I do not wish that upon my son. And I see us going down that path again, that there is inequality, period. It should be equal for all of us in respect and love. And I know that's what we fought for. I know that's what all movements fought for, which is to be equal. And that was not an equal scenario. My son, God bless him, he understands, and he's looking forward to being with the friends that he has created that are also American.
Minutes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cedric Denard II.
So last week at Todd Beamer High School for the blackout movement, basically what happened behind it was the Black Student Union, we came together after school and we decided that we were going to do something just for the Black Lives Matter movement, just to express ourselves, because we do have a God-given right to express ourselves. And so we came together and we decided to express ourselves by wearing all black. That was something that we all agreed on, that we all came together to decide would be a great thing to do. And we decided that we were also going to invite the school and everyone in the school, if they wanted to wear black with us, they could. It was an option. There was no punishment for not wearing black. No one was being rewarded for wearing black. It was just if you wanted to come in all black, then that was an option. That's what you could do if you wanted to support the movement. If you didn't want to, you didn't have to. And basically, we weren't trying to say that all lives did not matter, because all lives definitely do matter. We're just basically saying our lives matter. And I don't see why it's a problem that we are saying that our lives matter.
No comments from the audience, please. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But basically we're just saying that our lives matter. And so if it becomes an issue that we're saying that, then I could have reason to believe that someone believes that Black lives do not matter. Because if we came together and we were like, everyone, let's wear red today, to say that all gay lives matter, I believe that wouldn't be any problem with that. No one would come and have a rebuttal and be like, well, we can't do that. But now we're saying that Black lives matter, and now it's an issue. And so the only thing that I can think is that people don't agree that Black lives matter. And if anyone wanted to make their own movement to say, like, gay lives matter or white lives matter or everyone's life matters, then they're welcome to do that as they want to. And so the fact that we decide that we want to step up and have our own Black Lives Matter, that shouldn't be an issue, because like I said, that's just us expressing ourselves. And so I don't see what the problem with that is, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. NCJNW.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Mr. McDonald, President of New Century Justice Network. I've came to this board on several occasions. Racism does in fact exist in this district, in Farewell Way. And people talk as if they say it doesn't. You can hide, you can run, but I'm gonna tell you right now that racism is live and well in this school district, and this board is a part of it. You put Dr. Campbell in the hand's nest because she's a Black woman. She have worked very hard for her accolades. Dr. Campbell, it wasn't given to her. She earned it by tedious work and study, burning midnight oil at night to get her degree or accolades later than her. She's in the ants nest in this public school district, Farewell Way. You know that racism is here. You have yet to address racism in the district, how teachers, white teachers, treat Black students and other students of color. That's an issue, and Black life does matter. And I stand with the student here this evening saying that Black lives matter because America seems to say, some of us who don't believe that Black lives matter, that our life don't matter. The police kill us in the street like dogs. And if you hurt a dog in the street, you get some time. The police just do whatever they want to do to us. And the school system is just the same way. Don't have any love for us. So I want to say this real quickly. And the reason why I'm here is that this district, you have terminated an employee. The employee went on FMLA. And you know what the law says? If you're on FMLA, you need to use up your sick time, and you need to use up your vacation time, then the FMLA kicks in. What did you do? The employee submit the documentation. You terminated her. Why? Because this employee have been telling you how she have been mistreated in your district.
So Mr. McDonald, can you help me understand how this goes with racism pieces of what you're talking about?
Because this employee is Black. Black employee works for you, your district, and Mr. Chair, since you want to ask me the question, I believe you're the one that signed the documentation to terminate that Black employee. And the reason why this employee is protected under the law, engaged in activities such as EEOC. She's protected. You cannot retaliate against her because she are expressing to the district that she has been a victim of racism in this district. Now, the next showdown, I should say, the next journey is in federal court. Madam Superintendent and the school board, you will answer to the law. You might be the president and school board members, but you are not the law. The courts are the law, and you will see us in the courts.
3 minutes, Mr. McDonald. Thank you.
And thank you for listening.
Shannon McCann.
Thank you, Board President McAnally and the board and Superintendent Dr. Campbell. My name is Shannon McCann, and I am the president of the FWEA, so the Federal Way Education Association Teachers Union. And beside me is the vice president of our Education Association, Jeremy Bort. And I'm really excited to be here, but I think I'm more excited that we saw so many students speak at the microphone, and I just wanted to acknowledge that. So participating in democracy is exciting and it's critical. And for all the families that are here as well, I just wanted to acknowledge, thank you for being here and part of our community. And we have exhausted educators in the room. Where are you? We were saying hello, way to be here. I know, okay, adorable, second row right there. So it's a really interesting time as well to be here because, like we said, democracy, engaging in democracy. The right to vote is the most powerful, nonviolent tool we have in democracy. I risked my life defending for that right. Some died in the struggle. If we are ever to actualize the true meaning of equality, effective measures such as the Voting Rights Act are still a necessary requirement of democracy. John Lewis said that. John Lewis also said, I was beaten, my skull was fractured, and I was arrested more than 40 times, so each and every one of us can register to vote. Do your part. African Americans only got the right to vote in 1965. So right now, here in the room, I'm really excited to hear this conversation about racial justice because it is the work. It is the work of our time. All of us are here engaged in that. And here in Federal Way Public Schools, as the teachers union, in collaboration with our board, our superintendent, all the educators that we represent, we are here to make this the best school district to not only learn, but to teach and to educate. A couple weeks ago, I was in DC, very fortunate to be there as part of our training, and we were there with educators from across the nation. Unfortunately, every time that we're at a training, it so happens that somebody in our nation is murdered for being Black. And we had the conversation about what are we gonna do about it. And so we got together and we walked to the White House. And on that walk, people hopped out of their cars to join us. Students saw us, students cheered. Office buildings opened their windows and waved at us and cheered. And they said, this is what democracy looks like. We are participating in democracy. All of us do matter. But right now, our Black and brown students are the ones that are being killed. So the dialogue happening here tonight, we do all have growing pains, but all of our students have the right to feel safe and welcome. And all of our educators have the right to feel safe and welcome in our schools as well. Thank you.
Next are superintendent comments. Dr. Campbell.
I want to start by first of all saying we heard quite a few comments tonight, and by the nature of board meetings, we don't sort of have rebuttal for each comment. I just want to talk on big ideas. I want to applaud every single scholar who came up and shared your perspective, because you are demonstrating what we want you to be in terms of thinking, vocal, young adults ready to change the world. And I want to tell you, I couldn't be prouder of you. I want to tell, and I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder, but I'm going to say, I don't know how many of you know, Federal Way is the most diverse district in the state of Washington, the most diverse. We have scholars from all parts of the world, all types of ethnicities and races. And we have to be sure that we create a space for them to feel like they can bring their whole selves. That's a part of them feeling whole. And we want that to happen in this district. It's why we have engaged in, for the first time, professional development that will help us to understand how to facilitate these conversations in a way that is constructive, because we cannot not talk about it. Our scholars are talking about it, it's real, and we can't turn a blind eye to it. We cannot do that. I tell the folks that I work with, when I was young, when you have kids, you have two different kids, they could be different. You don't say you don't see differences in those two kids. You see differences. Differences are to be seen, and they're to be celebrated, and they're for us to talk about. And the district is engaged in that conversation, and will continue to do that. We'll continue to do a better job of informing parents and having our community to be partners with that, but we're going to continue to talk about it because that is what we want. We want critical thinkers and we want to honor various perspectives as they come into our schools. I wanted to spend some time. For whatever reason in our country, race is the hardest thing for us to talk about. And anytime something's hard for us to talk about it, that means we should be talking about it. So we have to walk to the fire on this, and we've got to hear each other, and we've got to not make somebody the bad guy, and we've got to go in with a learner stance to understand perspectives, and that's what we're going to be about in this district. And so I just want folks to know that we have to be courageous here. I wanted to read a statement, or rather point of view. I'd walked into a classroom. Specifically, I'd walked into Todd Beamer on Friday, and I went to Ben Drager's classroom, and Ben was reading something to his scholars. And as he was reading it, he couldn't read it without tearing up. So I took a picture of what Ben said. Ben, would you come up to the podium while I read what you said, what you wrote on the wall? Because when I heard you read, I have to tell you, I could tell you loved your kids. And what we want for the people who work and serve in Federal Way, we want them to have a head and a heart for our scholars. We want them to love them, and we want them to teach them well. And here's what he said. It was titled, "These Are My Thoughts." I want students to feel safe and valued when they come to school. I want them to come into my classroom and know they're welcomed and accepted. I want to be a safe adult for you to come to. I want to love each one of you. I know that you want to be loved, accepted, respected, and praised. I want Beamer to be a place where you have those things. I want you to have friends and make decisions that benefit you and your friends. By now, he had already broken down twice and could barely finish reading this. I want you to be successful here at home and after Beamer. I want you to think for yourself and not allow others to influence you, but I want you to be able to influence others in a positive way. I want you to care because I care about you. I want you to know that I'm being honest. I want you to know that often I make mistakes and do not want to hurt you. I want you to know that you're the reason I come to Beamer every day.
Thank you.
So outside of me embarrassing you, do you have anything you want to say, Ben?
Just to add to the dialogue that we heard tonight, I believe that conversation was important that we had. And in our classroom, we didn't frame it as a specific issue rather than giving an opportunity, as Ms. Lewis said earlier, to talk about that and create a safe space to kind of have students express their feelings and debrief. It was a tough day for a lot of students at Beamer, and so we were doing the best we could with what we had, the resources we had, to try and open that dialogue, because for those of you that weren't there, it affected our school environment immensely. So it's tough to say if you didn't witness it or if you weren't directly affected by it immediately after it, but when the students came back to your classes, it was more than just a physical feeling. So
Thank you, Ben. Two other really big ideas. You may think you know the whole story, but you don't. There are more details and more information that most people don't have and that we can never share. What I can tell you is that we are determined to do the right things, and we make decisions based on doing the right things for our scholars. I want to say this, that I heard something about this particular board. This board has done more reading on this topic than any board probably in the state. This is probably one of the most special groups of people that I have had the opportunity to work with, and we're not talking tokenism here. We're talking the real work. And so I take offense to anything that would sort of put our board out there as a board that's not passionately working to ensure that we have equity in Federal Way Public Schools.
Thank you, Dr. Campbell. Now it's time for school board comments. Director Gregory, would you like to start us?
as Dr. Campbell said, she stole my thunder somewhat, and that's great. Because I think it is very important that we as a community recognize who we are. And who we are is the most diverse school district in the state of Washington. And we can't meet the needs and provide the opportunities to all of our students and our staff if they don't feel welcome, safe, and encouraged. I want to tell you the journey this board took. And some of us were here and some of us weren't for all of it. But some of us came onto this board in a very troubled time in this district, and we could see that we were not meeting the needs of anyone, including ourselves. We were frustrated in our roles as well. And so we've taken a journey, and that journey is to decide what we want the most for our students and our staff, and how we're going to get it. And we knew it was going to be a very hard journey. And we're now beginning the difficult part. And the difficult part is developing the skills and the appreciation for all of our students. And understanding that we all come with different skills, different perspectives, different family lives, and things mean different things to all of us. And when we went out to find a new superintendent, we knew the journey we had to take. And we knew it was going to be hard. And we were very, very lucky to find someone who had the skill sets that we needed and the courage to take on the really tough issues that were underlying our ability to educate our children. And I say that because I, too, resent greatly hearing things like, we selected someone because of their race. That had nothing to do with it. We wanted the best and the brightest, and we got it. And we're working hard, harder than we wanted to because of her. She is putting our feet to the ground, and she is killing us, as many of the staff can also tell. There have been amazing changes in this district already, but now we're getting to the tough part. And the tough part will be being able to talk about race, being able to create a climate and an environment where everyone believes that they are important. And with that, we believe we will see a vast improvement in the learning that takes place in this district. And that's what it's all about. You know, we got to get over the other things that are in our way. And race is in our way right now. And so we as a board took this on, and we're going to be beaten and bloodied probably by the time it's, you know, our terms are up. But it's okay, because it's the right thing to do. And I really appreciate everyone coming and talking about this. And we as a staff are learning how to talk about this. And if the community, you know, has a desire to also work with us and learn how to talk about this, we can figure out how to make that happen. But I really appreciate it. I wanted you to know that what's happening in this district now is very intentional, partly because it's our circumstance, who we are, but more because what we want for our scholars. Because that's going to make the difference in Federal Way. Anyway, that's my passion.
Thank you. Vice President Wilson.
I too want to just thank all the voices that came out tonight, and especially those young voices who were speaking from their heart. And the fact is, it's incredibly important to have a safe space to have any conversation. And as white woman in my world, I know I've had a lot of space, a lot of time, and I've had a lot of conversation and not necessarily left room for someone else. So I think it's critically important we understand that this needs to be looked at from a race equity lens, and I'm just going to put it out there because that's truly what I believe, and unless we start talking about it and look at it that way, we're not changing anything. And as a matter of fact, it'll lift the world for everyone if in fact we do the right thing, because this is about racism and institutional racism. And one individual, and I can speak my own truth, but we have to change policy, we have to change practice, and we have to change mindsets from the inside out. So most of the work that has to happen is individual work. It's not about what's on paper. It's about how we walk our world and who we are. So I'm very, very proud. And again, we all have a right to have a voice and an opinion in where we're at, but we also have to understand we have 23,000 students that we have to think about, and how I talk to my own child and my own individual student and what my family world is. Those are one piece, that's one piece of the conversation. But we have 23,000 students who are going to live in a much bigger world than we've ever lived in, and we already know that just by knowing about Federal Way. And we've got to figure out how they're going to learn how to work and be in a global world where we all have different ways of looking at things. And I just think this conversation is critically important, and it's an issue of safety for all students, and particularly those students who have not felt like they've had a space for their voice to be heard. I want to say that there's been a lot going on. Besides this conversation, we've had convening around Goal 2, which is around our community and family partnerships, and had an incredible group there for a 4-hour time to talk about how they, as community members and youth-serving organizations and faith-based organizations, can really help us around 3 particular areas, and that's mentoring, 24/7 community services, and also our student-led conferences. And so it's really, again, an opportunity to embrace and to invite in our community partners, because we cannot do this alone. We cannot do this alone. That also, again, provides opportunity and space to have our students have role models and individuals from the community who care deeply about them and want to support the outcomes for students. Mentor orientation, I went to mine, and I know we had a flyer up here last time, but I encourage and ask our community if you want to be part of this broader conversation. One way you can do that is by influencing and being a mentor for a student and being in the life of a young student, and there's a commitment there, but there's information on the district website about that.
And we're targeting Todd Beamer
Todd
and
Beamer
Sahali.
and Sahali.
So we've put
And
Sahali
Sahali,
and Todd
right.
Beamer now have, between the two of them, 60 adults who are mentoring and working one-on-one with scholars. And all of us on this group are mentors, and it's been exciting.
I also want to say that I had the opportunity, we all were at the ribbon cutting for Federal Way High School on Friday afternoon. And if you weren't there, hopefully you had a chance perhaps to do the public tour on Saturday, where we had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of our community come through and get a chance to look at the building with students who toured us. But also, I know Director Drake and I were both there, and the community could not get over the quality of the building and the incredible learning space that has been created there. And if you have an opportunity, I know we'll have future chances to do that, and especially when we have the second part of the construction done, please take a chance to see what your tax dollars have purchased, because it's an outstanding flagship school. The two things the students were most thrilled about, besides the teaching environment, was the sensor water bottle fillers that also talk about how much is being saved by recycling and not reusing, reusing versus using plastic bottles. And then the other thing was the bathrooms. And number one, they're clean, which we figured, it's brand new, it kind of smells like a new car. But the second thing is they're tile, and they're beautiful. And I think about the cleanliness and how that kind of a construction is going to last over time. And so the desks, just everything was really quality. And so if you do get a chance, please do that. And then I have 2 short things. One is the mirror debates. We're almost done, and we have our election coming up in November. But I wanted to just do a point of clarification. I've been to 4 debates in the last 3-4 weeks, and there continues to be something that rises as kind of a miscommunication or a piece of information, and that is around the issue of what a charter school is and what a charter school is not. And instead of talking about what it is, I'll talk about what it's not. And a charter school is not Technology Access Foundation Academy or TAFA. Charter school is not FWAPA or the Federal Way Public Academy. FWAPA is a district-run school, and it's just an innovative or a different kind of a model of a school. TAF Academy is an incredible picture of what a public-private partnership should look like. And it looks that the district is providing all the core instruction, and we have a wonderful foundation that's providing all of the expanded learning, extended learning, and all of the support and all of the additional support to individual students. But it's not a charter school. And so if you hear those things, just know that we're about innovation and doing great things for children. But those are not two examples of what a charter would be. And I just want to make sure that people know that. And then the other thing is I just want to publicly say to Dr. Campbell to thank you for everything you're doing, because we're asking you to do a lot, and you're doing everything we're asking you to do. And it will take a while to see the needle move and to see change, but you can already, I think, feel a change. You can see a change. And when you walk the buildings and you talk to staff and you see what's already happened from the strategic plan on, there is a lot of momentum that's going, and we are in total support of you as a board.
Thank you. Director Ito?
I also want to thank the members of the public that came out with heartfelt comments. It's all part of the democratic process, since we're the representatives of the community for the school district. So it was great to hear the community come out and give their thoughts. I also want to talk about the Federal Way High School tour because it represents another part of the democratic process. When we were trying to come out of a recession, the community, forward-thinking, voted to tax themselves and build this new school. And the students that were there touring us, they represent how much joy there is in seeing this new high school built. And it's because of the community members that voted for this new high school. It's a state-of-the-art, fantastic facility. It's got a real library, as the tour guides pointed out. And in addition, there's meeting rooms for the students and open spaces where the students can congregate. So it's a really well-designed facility. And so it's a big thanks back to the community who were forward-thinking enough to say we need a new high school and decided to pay for it. I hope many of the folks did get a tour and visit, especially the culinary kitchen, because they had plenty of finger foods, and the quiche that they made was fantastic. So thanks for everybody that voted for that facility, and I hope you have a chance to tour it. And if you've got kids that are going to be going there, you'll hear about what a fantastic facility it is.
Thank you. Director Drake?
The conversation tonight was painful. My heart was beating. It was tough, but it was probably one of the most valuable conversations that we could possibly be having. I've been in Federal Way now 10 years. I was principal at Beamer, 2008 to 2010, been principal at TJ. I absolutely agree with the comments that Carol said. We knew we were on a tough journey. We are so engaged in identifying, realizing, believing, owning the institutionalized racism that we know is going on in our schools. Ben was a student at Beamer when I was there. The teachers that stood up and explained, talked about why they did what they did, students, parents coming up. It was heartfelt. It's tough, but what we're going through is going to be so much stronger because we're bringing voice to it. Shannon, you hit so many nails on the head in what you said. Tammy, we are so with you. Carol, said it absolutely right. We're working ourselves into the ground sometimes, reading the Courageous Conversations, really understanding where as a district we are, what our scholars' needs are, and how we as a team, and I see us all working together as a team to better meet the needs of every one of our scholars. I heard students talking about, we didn't mean to disrespect. It was painful and powerful and so valuable. I won't sleep tonight just replaying it. I am a mentor. I did my first official mentoring, Mentor Me, today at Saholly. I came out with the biggest grin that you can imagine. The student that I'm working with is a 7th grader, and the half hour just zipped by. And what Claire is saying, Mentor Me, Saholly, Beamer. There are students that are benefiting from having an adult to listen and engage and just help. They have questions they can ask you that you can help them with, or go to the counselors. So please, those of you in the audience, those of you at home, look into it, become a mentor. There are so many positive things going on in Federal Way. I was at the Multi-Service Center luncheon last week, where the focus is our homeless families, our students who are homeless. And again, Tammy really did an amazing job on a video, just impressing upon our community how homelessness, there is no way a scholar can be successful unless we can provide the support. It's all the little things that we're doing, and the momentum is growing, and we're going to get to that tipping point. But it's evenings like this that are going to strengthen us as a district. That's it.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Just want to take a point of personal privilege. There's another person in this room who's done a fantastic job of leading us, and that's our chair, Jeffrey McAnalloy. I don't think he realized what he was getting into when he decided to be chair of this board, because it's been a horrendous job. And I congratulate him and thank him for what he's done to keep us on the straight and narrow, even though me in particular, wants to waver. Thanks, Jeffrey.
Absolutely. Thank you. So I too want to echo what my counterparts have said tonight. So first, Shannon McCann, thank you for summing it up perfectly in what I would believe and say for the most part. I want to thank the scholars and the teachers and the parents for coming out tonight, because it's important. This is an important conversation. This board has done over 100 hours of retreat in the last 15 months, and this is at the forefront and center of what we're talking about. And how do we do this as a board superintendent team to make differences? I truly believe that we have institutional racism in our schools, and until we see the achievement gap disappear, we've not tackled it, and it's work that we must do. But I believe the cultural competency training that we did, as we heard from staff and teachers tonight, gave them space to be courageous enough to stand up and talk about, create space for all students to talk about what the process is. It's not easy, and the dialogue is what is important. I honor all of you. All of you come from your own place of where you're at. And until we come together as the most diverse district in this state, and when you talk about that and compare it even nationally, our diversity truly is our richness and what we can take as an honor, but we must work together. We must find common ground to work through it until every single one of our 23,000 scholars can walk into a classroom and feel safe and ready to learn. We have not gotten there. And we must do that for all, right? So as we think about all the lives that we hear on a weekly basis that are Black and brown individuals that are losing their lives, it is at the forefront. It doesn't matter that all lives don't matter, but it truly is. Racism is the hardest thing to talk about. And as the only white privileged male sitting on this board, I will pound this over and over and over again. I can tell you that I'm trying to have impact at the state level. We have what's called a streamlining committee on the legislative committee That committee I served on last year and actually got a cohort out of Bellevue. There are only 3 of the 24 that are individuals of color. I convinced her to do this work with me. I can tell you on Saturday I appointed a brand new committee for next year. The 3 individuals of color will now serve in 6 spots because I convinced all 3 of them to be a part. So as we begin to look at the equity at a state level, I am completely committed to doing this, and they all 3 agreed, and we will begin to look at all of those policies we have as school board directors across the state to make sure we have an equity lens. And all 3 of them will participate and do that work. It's not going to be an easy journey, and it will take time. But until we can step up to begin to do it together, we're not going to make a difference, and all are not going to feel welcome. And until every single scholar gets there, our work is not complete. Go ahead. You have a comment? No? Okay. So ribbon cutting was pretty special. You know, as we shared on last Friday, and we've seen that kind of rise out, the way they've created that school, it no longer sits down in the hill. It actually is a prominent figure that now sits on Pack Highway. It's something we should be very proud of, and I want to thank you, the voters, that made that happen. But I want to thank the scholars, as I shared on Friday. It failed the first time, and it was the scholars that came forward and made a video and pressed the community that this is something they needed based on where it was at. It is their work that made this happen, and student voice is powerful, and we must stop and listen to it. 2 weeks from tonight, please vote. You have 14 days left to do it. Please make sure that you have your voice heard, no matter where that voice sits. I believe it is our democracy and our democratic process. So please make sure that you take that opportunity to vote. We need it at the state level, the national level, all levels. It's daunting when you look at your ballot and open it, but please walk through it. There are a lot of resources out there to kind of guide you. And I implore you to please make sure that you do that. So that's all my comments. Dr. Campbell?
I just want to encourage anyone who works with a young person. I want to encourage you to coach them to say things like, I wonder why. Tell me a little bit more about that. That's interesting, versus right, wrong, binary systems, not trying to understand perspective. That really is a 21st century skill, and I think that's really what we want our scholars to do as they go out into the world. That's the big idea in all of this.
Absolutely. And I too am a mentor, so I actually did my mentorship. I have a McKinney-Vento student, so I can tell you that it is, and that means that individual is a homeless student, right? And so it is important. They need us. It's amazing the things you can do from a first conversation. There are things as I begin to look at what this individual is eating for lunch from the things they want to do that they didn't feel they had been heard. And so as an adult, sometimes they don't necessarily have the parents that can advocate for them. So a mentor can come forward and make a difference in a student's life. So we are about 2/5 to what our goal is. It's 150, which I told Dr. Campbell last week we actually need 10% or 2,300, but let's start. But we need your help. We need 90 more of you to please come forward and mentor. And it's amazing. It's just, I left beaming, but at the same time heartbroken about where our students at. And if you know, we got to do all we can to advocate for them and help. And so we need you, please. All right, our next item on the agenda is the resolution. So I will read this resolution. Federal Way School District Number 210, King County, Washington, Resolution Number 2016-15. A resolution of the Board of Directors of Federal Way School District Number 210, King County, Washington, supporting South King Fire and Rescue Proposition Number 1, tax levy to renew the expiring 4-year levy in order to maintain operational capabilities and for the maintenance and operational expenditures essential for basic fire and life protection needs. Whereas it is the judgment of the Board of Directors of the Federal Way School District Number 210, King County, Washington, that it is essential and necessary for the protection of the health, life, and property of the students and staff of the school district and the fire and emergency medical services provided by South King County Fire and Rescue Services remain responsive, and whereas the estimated cost of the annual $2.7.5 million is 19 cents per thousand of assessed valuation, and whereas South King County Fire and Rescue is seeking voter approval on a levy on November 8, 2016 ballot in order to maintain current levels of service. Therefore, the Board of Directors of the Federal Way School District Number 210 does hereby support the renewal of the South King Fire and Rescue Proposition Number 1 tax levy. So at this time, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the Board of Education adopt Resolution 216-15 supporting South King Fire and Rescue Proposition Number 1 tax levy.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we are adjourned. It did.